Welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on the show we have Robin Johnson. Robin is the owner and operator of the Stone Church, which is a new, fairly new music venue here in town, right down on the corner of Main and Grove Streets. And he's going to be talking about that, as well as he did grow up here, and he's done a lot of traveling in between. So we're going to get some stories out of him today. Hello, Robin, and thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here back in Brattleboro. I think, we will talk about some of your early time here, but as far as the Stone Church goes, I think so many of us have connection to that church, people who have lived in town for any length of time, partly because it's so beautiful, partly because anyone who's been inside, I think, has been pretty much enchanted by the stenciling and the old pews, and all of the appointments in the church are just so lovely, which you have managed to really keep intact as much, I know, not only as much as possible, but you've replicated things as well. Yeah,
we made an effort to make all the new construction look and feel like the old construction.
Mm-hmm.
So we added a bar, which is obviously something you wouldn't see in a church
Right.
from the 19th century. And we built the stage out in order to accommodate bands and
Mm-hmm.
larger groups, and built a booth for the sound and lighting equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, we used a lot of old wood from the building. We used old pew dividers and old pews, and anywhere we could salvage some of the old walnut.
Uh-huh.
So everything really kind of blends in.
Yeah.
We had people that had played there before not recognize that we'd built an entire large stage that wasn't there before.
Yes. That was my feeling when I walked in. I think I had been there for a couple. Often the literary festival will take that space and use it. But when I first walked in, I knew that there were things different, but it was done so well and pretty seamlessly, And yes, of course, there's a bar, but it all blends in really well.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We can talk more about that later. But you did grow up in Brattleboro.
Yes, I did.
And you went to BUHS.
Mm-hmm. It's from junior high in BUHS, and then 10th through 12th grade. And freshman year, I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. But
You did?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what were you doing in Nashville?
My mother went to graduate school
Uh-huh.
at Vanderbilt, and
Uh-huh.
so I spent a year down there, but felt like the schools were better up here.
Yeah.
And it was not so humid, although
Definitely not so humid. Yeah.
though that was in the 90s, so maybe now it's about the same.
It could be. Did you get into the music scene at all in Nashville?
Not really. I was just, I think freshman year I hadn't picked up music yet. I went to the Grand Ole Opry, and I went to, we were close to town, so I saw some of the old famous sites in Nashville, but I wasn't really old enough into the scene enough to really enjoy it.
Yeah. And it was also before Nashville kind of became the new Nashville as far as music goes, too.
Mm-hmm. It was classic country at that point, really.
When you finished high school, you went traveling. Is that when you started really traveling?
Yeah, I took a 1 year off after high school and traveled mostly the U.S., Colorado, California, lots of driving around, hitchhiking, and stuff that young people do before they figured out something else to do.
Yeah.
But even at that time, I had, desires to travel further throughout the world.
Yes.
But just didn't get a chance to act on it till later.
Yeah. It seems like that's a thread a bit in your life, is traveling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. During those times, was music a focus for you at all?
Yeah, more so then. I played a little bit in a band in high school, and so went to probably not that. Maybe I'd done a little bit of writing, just the barest bits, but
Songwriting.
Yeah. And then that started more a couple years after that. Yeah.
Did the road help that at all?
Oh, definitely. I think anytime you see different people in different cultures, gives you different perspectives and helps your creativity, it helps just your lens on the world in general.
Yeah.
To see more, see more and experience more, which is still, just like you said, still a thread. And there's so many wonderful places
Yeah.
that I've been,
Yeah.
but the most interesting places are always the places that I haven't been. So
That's a really good line. That's good.
2010, really, that I started traveling more intensely. So at that point, went to Eastern Europe, and since then, I guess that's, in the next 5 years after that or so, I visited 18 or 19 countries.
Really?
I think so.
That's a lot. So were you backpacking it? Were you just going through that way?
No, not so much backpacking. A little bit of trains to
Yes.
buses in some places.
Yeah.
I mean, in Europe, it's so easy to travel. Public transportation is readily available, and it's easy to go from place to place.
Yeah.
So, and also when I lived in Russia, it was easy to fly to various other places.
Yeah.
So, and anywhere in Europe or close in Asia was fairly easily accessible.
Wow. You did Asia too?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Thailand.
Thailand, yeah. And again, would you stay there or stay at certain places for a period of time?
I found in a lot of cities you can get a feel for the city in 2 to 3 days, and then there's a little lag before you really find the other parts.
Yes.
You start to get your favorite places, or you find some more unknown things.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit from that 3rd day to maybe the 7th or 8th day, where you're just exploring and not sure what you're going to find.
Yeah. And so if you're staying there for 2 weeks, you get to settle into a certain level.
Yeah, you get some patterns and you find
Yeah.
what your spots.
And you weren't daunted either, it sounds like, by the languages.
No. I mean, I'm not a huge talker, so
That's how we got on the show, on a conversation show today.
yeah. Every single city in Europe really has an amazing amount of history and incredible architecture. So yeah, it was really just to experience each place.
Yeah, this is one of those annoying talk show questions, but was there anything that stood out for you in those travels, places or
Yeah,
things you
really
saw?
the Adriatic coast in the former Yugoslavia, Montenegro, Croatia. Those are probably favorite spots. Northern Europe also is really nice. I mean, the people in Holland seem so nice and practical. That really struck out as a great culture and an easy culture to live in. But yeah, number one would be the Adriatic coast there. Dubrovnik is an amazing city.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. When you were in Europe, there was such a diversity, right, of different cultures.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of that as opposed to when you were in America,
Right,
and
yeah.
we have a huge, continent, but maybe not quite as diverse.
Yeah, I prefer the diversity.
Yeah.
And that's, we have 2 young kids, and so one of our, or at least I think our biggest concerns is to make sure that they travel enough and are exposed to both their Russian heritage and their other, and just other cultures in general, because I think it's really easy in America to be kind of to have blinders put on you by the culture and by the media.
Yeah, yeah. And the diversity in a place like Vermont is not so great. right?
not very diverse.
They're not going to get a really big array of different kinds of folks here.
Slightly different shades of white.
Yeah, that's right, slightly. At some point, and I'm not sure where this falls, but you were teaching English as a second language.
Right.
Yeah, how did you get into that?
So my wife is Russian. We initially met when she was a student at SIT.
Oh.
So we met here in 2005, and then kind of kept in contact, but didn't see her again until 2010. And then after that, we met a couple times. That was part of my travels. we met once in Lithuania and once in Montenegro. And then after that, I decided, to make the move to Russia, and needed some way to make money. So the easiest method is to get a TESOL certification, and then apply for jobs in Moscow. So that's what started that process.
When you were doing English as a second language, was it mainly in Russia?
Completely in Russia.
It was all in
Yeah,
Russia.
yeah.
And what kinds of jobs did you have there?
Well, initially, there's a number of English language schools there, just because it's such a big industry. Anyone who wants to get involved in the international business world, or really anything there, even if you're just in like marketing there, you still need to have, some English skills. So there's lots of schools, and I just applied to a number of them, and the first one that said that, we'll take you right away. We went there and worked with them for a year and a half, but pretty quickly you can pick up private clients and other work. I soon shifted just to private lessons, and I'd find clients through word of mouth. That made the travel through the city easier. And,
Yes.
Right.
Did you like it?
Yeah, sometimes. It was a really interesting city.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Lots of people. 15 million people or
Now,
so.
this is Moscow?
This is Moscow,
Yeah.
And the teaching was okay. It was good for when I could get clients or groups that were interested in discussing things. So you could kind of get group discussions going and learn really about the people and the culture at the same time.
For you, it would work both ways, I would think. Yes.
So that was more interesting than the setups where you just had to give people some exercises.
Yes.
I worked for the Russian Federation, one of their major think tanks. I worked with the director and his top deputies. And that was specifically because they were looking to, they had set up these trips to travel to Europe and the US on goodwill missions to other think tanks to kind of exchange ideas and learn how they worked. And so when I started that process, they were really into opening up to the West. The director was really positive about open borders and less visa control, so people can travel and learn. And then while I was there teaching them, Russia annexed Crimea and became involved in the civil war in Ukraine, and really still to this day blame the U.S. for that. So while I was there with this group talking about the openness and connecting the cultures, at the same time they were just going in opposite directions.
So it got very volatile, actually, during that time.
Yeah. So it was interesting when we, for a little while, I would use Ukraine as one of our topics to talk about, and then as things got worse, we just found different topics.
Yeah, I would imagine you'd have lively conversations, however, during that time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, was it helpful for them to go through that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we were all reasonable people. So there wasn't any real debate about right or wrong there. I think we kind of were in agreement that a lot of people were wrong.
Or not able to agree.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you did that for a while, and then you actually did get more into the community in Moscow, is that right?
Yep, yeah.
And started thinking about music venues there?
For me, I'm more of a singer-songwriter rather than like a quality musician. So I played a lot of open mics, and when I moved to Moscow, I kind of looked around and seemed like there was nothing there. And So eventually, me and another guy kind of started one that didn't go over too well, and then we found another bar that's owned by a Syrian expat and some Russians, and they had a real young, high energy expat group before they started the bar. So they had this kind of built-in audience. And so I approached them, and they were excited about it. So we started an open mic there, and then in like the first week we had people singing English, Russian, Italian, French, maybe Spanish as well.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. So
That's pretty great.
and I think it's still going now.
Really?
Yeah, it's been four years or so.
Was it a new idea for them?
Sort of, yeah. I mean,
Or a way of
there's
expressing that maybe they hadn't had a chance to before?
Yeah, I mean, in general, Russians are more concerned about studying things and doing things the way they were done. There's a lot of their culture, from their classical music to their architecture, where they copied classical styles from Europe.
Yeah.
So in general, Russians, when they start something, they want to be prepared and do it properly. So to get people to just get up and try something, or especially like original material or material they didn't really have down, that was different than that's not necessarily the normal Russian mentality.
And even for younger people, that was true.
Yeah. I mean, I think the culture changes really fast.
Yes, right.
So, there's like the hipster culture is huge in Russia.
Yeah.
There's so many old factories. Like the Soviet style was to have large centralized factories. So there are these giant buildings and complexes that became kind of empty after the Soviet Union. And so all sorts of them been taken over with like really artsy little cafes and boutiques. And my wife makes jewelry. She did a lot of craft fairs. And
So sort of like Brooklyn.
really a lot like Brooklyn in some places.
Does it feel like it?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and just
wow.
different letters.
Yeah,
That's the only thing.
different alphabet.
Yeah.
Right. That's really interesting, and it's proliferating. This is something that's really happening over
Yeah,
here.
no, it's expanding. Same thing happened with like the craft beer.
Yeah.
When I moved there, it's like everything was this generic Pilsner, but not good like it was being Europe. But so it wasn't very good. But then after about 3 years there, a few places opened up with IPAs and different styles.
Local?
Yeah.
Locally made?
Locally made. And then I went back to visit a year later after we were here, and they were kind of all over the place. And then I went back another year after that, and there was like, you'd get off the subway station, there'd be like 4 craft beer places, and some of the stuff that they were coming up with was just like out hipstering anything in Brooklyn.
Really?
Yeah, it was really to a point that it was probably too much. But that's just an example of how fast the cultural changes can move there.
Yeah, and also it's a whole different kind of mindset, right? To be able to express yourself that way, with making beer, with creating jewelry, and having places where people can come and shop.
Yeah,
that's different, right?
Yeah,
and that you saw that change.
Yeah, and even before that, even when I got there was giant shopping centers and malls. I'm sure there's some malls that big in America, but maybe not.
Oh, really?
Huge malls.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the first time.
Oh, gee whiz, you really hope that they would take the best of us, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, and there's there's Starbucks everywhere.
Really?
Yeah, Starbucks and Subway's big.
Yeah. How is this for your wife? Because she grew up in Karelia, right?
Yeah.
Could you just say a few words about Karelia? Because I had no idea where it was.
Yeah, so Karelia's up it borders Finland. It's actually split between Finland and Russia. There's Finnish Karelia and Russian Karelia. So it's gone back and forth between Finland and Russia over the years. It's kind of known as a magical place. There's lots of lakes. And so there's a lot of this kind of mystical energy.
Did you feel it when you were there?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful.
Did you live there?
No, but we visited, a number of times.
And your wife has relatives?
Yep. Yeah, my wife's mother still lives there, and she grew up there.
So let's go back to the Stone Church right here in Brattleboro. And in some ways, I suppose you could say that you kind of grew up in that church a little bit, right?
Yeah. I mean, my father bought the church in 1975 and moved his company into it. And I think at one point my mother sold rugs in the upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
And books. And then Friends of the Sun was started and was up in that area. And then it became Omega's offices,
Yes.
Which lasted until about 2001.
Yeah. And so when you came back to the States, did you have in mind that you wanted to create a music venue?
No. I mean, from the time that they had planned to move from that, when they were going to build their new campus.
Yes, right.
My father was wondering what to do with that space. And so at that point I was like, oh, this is what it should be. This is pretty obvious to me, I thought. So I'd given up on that thought long ago. And then it just was a combination of events where in order to get my wife's green card, we needed to travel back on her immigration visa. My mother was also ill at the same time, and they finally cleaned out the last of their equipment from the basement. So for the 10 or 12 years that people were renting the upstairs and having dances, they were still producing material in the basement, and that was really subsidizing the building. So once they left, there was really nothing. The activity upstairs couldn't really support just the costs of the building. Right. So I had to be here for a few reasons, and then there was a need to make something work in the space. We're close to finished, but.
Do you have plans that you're still working on?
Yeah, because we put in a full catering kitchen in the basement, so we need to, and then we recently in the spring put in a dumbwaiter, but we need to build that out so there's a place for people to get food and an easy way for food to get upstairs, because it's right now the placement of the kitchen is far from any stairwell or anything to get up to the upstairs, so to make it efficient. Wow,
that's engineering, right? Doing all that?
Yeah, it's a challenge with the old building, because it's like you think there's all this space, but there's very few places to put in a stairwell or to put something in.
Right, and elevators and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. No. And so you're going to eventually be doing food?
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully very soon.
Good.
As we're looking for ways to get people in the door without charging them too much, we plan to open for football on Sundays, other sporting events, or other things that we can broadcast on our screen.
Great idea.
So we'll
diversify, right?
Yeah. I think that's the key here.
And when you first came, did you have a vision for what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, I think the vision's been pretty consistent, and it's kind of getting closer all the time. We've had moments where it's there. I used to DJ with the Radio Free Brattleboro, so I've always enjoyed introducing people to music. So, I mean, that's a big thing, is to bring music to the area that wouldn't otherwise be able to be here.
Yes. And how has that played out for you?
It's ups and downs.
Yeah.
So far, people will always come out to local stuff, people they know and talk to and make a connection with, especially if it's free or close to free.
Yep.
And then people will come out for like a big name, something big enough that they really recognize it. But there's a whole realm of really amazing regional, national, international touring acts that that it's tough to get people for. So it's really still trying to figure out how to book properly to I don't know, I don't want to give up on this 90%, 95% of the music out there.
Yeah.
But figuring out how to bring it in and still make it economically viable.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge thing is getting people to explore something new, you know, whether it's music, food, or anything in the area. I'm sure that's true in most areas, but again, you know, we are small. We're a small community.
It's definitely, we're demographically challenged. We need, you know, no matter what, we'll need people to come from Northampton, Keene, Wilmington,
and so
Bellows Falls.
Your PR goes out in that direction too.
Yep. Yeah, we look at like about a 50-mile radius, 50 to 60-mile radius that we have to push to.
Yes.
We get a lot of people that come from Western Mass and New Hampshire, and they're amazed by the place. So we're slowly building that way, but it's still, you know, for those people, we really have to focus on like a Friday or Saturday because they're not going to want to drive on a midweek.
And so many of us over the years have gone to Northampton or Amherst, you know, or various places for things like this. You know, so if you can just turn that around.
Yeah, I think that's still in the culture here. I think if people, when they go out here, they think they're going to go to Mass MoCA, they're going to go to Northampton. Right. So we have to train them to think that they can just come here.
That's right. Yeah. And you know, and so, you know, I've always heard people say that, and whether it's retail or music or venues like this, that it's like 3 years, you know, before people really gets into the town or really gets into the local culture. Yeah,
and I think if it's something is local, if something's there, I mean, and the building's always been there.
That's right.
People, it doesn't strike people that it's something special or new. Yeah.
Except you do when you drive by in the evening and you see a crowd of young people outside. To me, that's one of the reasons I got in touch with you. I was to try to figure out, how are you doing this? You know? Because there are people in the area that are doing that to what seemed to be that degree. Yeah,
I mean, for shows that does work, then, you know, we're bringing in, you know, 100, maybe 200 or more people.
Yeah, that's good.
Most of which aren't from here. So, I mean, economically, I think I was just talking to Brenda Siegel, and she was saying that it's $35 to $40 per person as far as like economic impetus. So when you get people, you know, if I get 100 people to drive from somewhere else and come here to see a show, and it's like $3,500, $4,000, and it's like economic activity into the town.
That's right. That's right. That's another piece of it. You know, and you multiply it out. You know, and then it starts.
If we do that 100 times a year.
Yes, right. So and if you've got food coming up from below, you know, that's exciting. Well, it sounds great, and I'm just so glad, you know, to have a really different kind of, I think we're also glad to have a different kind of venue in town, even if we don't know about it yet. You know? We know something's cooking there when we go by.
Everyone who comes in seems to like it.
So. and are impressed with it, too. Yeah, and like I said, I think that we all have an old connection as well with that church, so you know, we've got our eye on it.
I think there's some people that are still a little upset that it's that it's not a Grange Hall that they can just come in and do whatever. But I think they'll get over it once they get used to the new space.
That's right. No, and yeah, it's worth even just poking your head in, you know, to come in and see what's going on there. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was nice to have you on the show, and it's great. It's just great to hear about new life happening in Brattleboro.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks to all of you for checking in today with us and for being part of this show. We will be back again next week, and we hope to see you then.